So welcome to the 5G Call to Action Community Summit. This is Sienna Lea, founder of Rise Multiversity and creator of Shadow Synthesis. And I'm here with my co-host, Anaiis Salles of Living Lessons Library, mentor, way shower, counselor, teacher, and so much more. So I'd like to give a little intro about Max. In case you don't know Max Egan has been a longtime activist at the forefront of cutting-edge research and trends, exposing geopolitical agendas and the transhumanist movement. He has produced radio shows and feature documentaries for many years. His dedication, calm demeanor, and proactive, solution-based thinking has gained him much momentum and respect. Max has done public speaking around the world and has helped catalyze much awareness around the real, true nature of artificial intelligence and the 5G rollout, among many other things. We're so glad to have you here, Max.
Thank you, Sienna. That was a beautiful intro. Thank you very much for that. Can you hear me okay? All good?
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, okay, I'm going to just also give a little intro to Lena. Is passionate about environmental health and a consultant for the National Association for Children and Safe Technology. She is also a project lead for the InPower movement, both developing notice of liability and collaborating with EMF experts and scientists on the negative biological effects from wireless devices and exposure. Lena has educated many school districts on bringing awareness and responsible use of Wi-Fi danger to children and young adults. And thank you so much for doing that, Lena. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Short and to the point. Cal Washington, and both Lena and Cal are leaders in the InPower movement. Cal Washington is an empowered advocate and contractor who has, as he described it, stumbled into knowledge leading to an extraordinary experience within the systems of commerce and justice. As a founder of the InPower movement with Josh DeSol-Beaulieu, Cal is dedicated to sharing his knowledge at this crucial time to help people truly take back their power and hold accountability those involved in these agendas causing this massive harm. As I said, I'm Sienna Lea, founder of Rise Multiversity. We're an online educational platform dedicated to empowering humanity's awakening. We have put on workshops and webinars exposing a lot of impositions and injustices on multidimensional levels. We have courses to help people break their own contracts and agreements and wounding and complicit with this agenda of domination and control so that we can forge our way in community, which is the key why I founded Rise. It felt to me to be a call from Gaia, Sophia, our mother planet herself, wanting us to come out of separation and support each other in this daunting but doable task to rise at this critical time in history and reestablish a humane co-creative relationship with all organic life. So it was actually Anaiis that suggested we do this call to action. I've been wanting to do something similar for many years, but it really feels like the time to bring these people together. Our intention is to hold a series of these events and to really have ongoing forums and support and all kinds of ways to help you stay the course. I know a lot of you are isolated, alone, dealing with health issues. Those of you who are dealing with this EMF imposition. I know I've been sick as heck the last 2 weeks. It's not an easy thing to stand up and hold center ground and get this done. So that's why we're offering this platform to bring us together so we can support you. And today we intend to create clarity and a simple step, a point to begin, because we know it can be daunting, we know it can be overwhelming, and we wish to ease that so it could actually be fun. So, Anaiis.
Okay. I'm Anaiis Salles. I founded Living Lessons Library over 25 years ago. I had my spiritual enlightenment awakening early in life, 1989. I went right into being an energy medicine healer, working around the world, around the globe, sitting on panels with people like Deepak Chopra and Norm Shilley and the Dalai Lama's physician. You know, I've had a really lovely run of it and done some beautiful, empowering healing work around the world as a retreat facilitator and collaborator working in the fields of oncology and critical burns. So I'm delighted to be here because my life has led me in so many beautiful ways, and today it has led me here, and I'm very grateful to be in this collaboration with RISE, and I'm so excited to be here with Lena Pooh and Cal Washington and Max Egan. Again, thank you so much for taking your time today.
Okay. So I'm going to start asking that question of Max. Yes?
Yeah. Max, I have a question for you to kick us off. And I know you've spoken a great deal about this, so it'll be easy for you to answer. You've got a lot going on. Right now, you're joining us from Amsterdam. Would you share with us what you are doing most currently and what projects you are engaged in right now?
Well, I'm actually on a speaking tour right now, so I'm engaged in that. And also this 5G thing, I mean, trying to get the word out to this. I'm working on a new film called Cacistocracy, which is outlining all of this, the way it's going and where we're heading. So that's one of my main focuses, is working on this film and just trying to get this word out to people and empower people. You know, we've got the Full Circle project going on, which is similar to what you're doing, creating action groups on the ground so that we've got people, you know, support groups around people, because everywhere I go, I find people that are lonely, they're awake, but they don't have anybody around them to help. So, you know, they need someone around them. So with Full Circle Project, we're trying to create that so that people have got some sort of a support group around them. They've got people around them so they can find the, you know, the will to move forward in their own community. That's what we're trying to do with that. So that's been the main focus, trying to alert people to what this smart grid really is. I recently did a talk in Acapulco, at the Acapulco conference with all the cryptocurrency people, try to show them what's actually going on with this as well, because, you know, a lot of these people in the cryptocurrency world are allowing their hubris to kind of lead them in one direction. I mean, cryptocurrencies could be great for freeing us from the banking system, but when you look at it, how it could work in with the IoT and the smart grid and 5G, it's not really the right way to be going. They've got to look at that as well and not think it's just the banking system that is the problem. You know, the problem is the world's run by criminals, and that's who's controlling the direction that we're moving. With all the technology we've got and all the good things we're attempting to do, if we fail to factor that in, then we've lost from the beginning. So that's what I've been trying to alert people to, the fact that this ruling hand is still there and they're still controlling things. And no matter what we think we are doing, we need to factor that in. So that has been my main focus, you know, trying to get people, you know, on board with this whole 5G rollout and this smart grid and the IoT and what it all really is.
Oh, thank you for doing that, Max. You really are out there doing what has to happen for the transformation and for us to get this in hand and step up and do what we need to do. So now...
I think it's important to talk to people. I mean, that's why I go and do the speaking dates and things. I mean, I prefer to be going home, and I can reach a lot of people doing the radio shows as well, but going and meeting them face to face, going and doing the talks, and when they meet you, they kind of see that you're a real person and you don't have an agenda, and you're actually doing this because it needs to be done. and inspires them to go out and make a difference in their community. So it's worth going to meet people and doing the miles just to get it done. I mean, what else am I going to do? You can see this coming. You got to do something about it, don't you? What are you going to do? Nothing? Let's sit at home and pretend it's not happening? I mean, I can't do that. So,
And the face-to-face communications are so important. And they're a wonderful antidote to what I call the system of separation that we're in and that we're really needing and desperately trying to recover from. So thank you for that, Max, and thank you for doing that work. And now I'm going to turn to first Lena and then Cal, but I want to know from both of you why you are so passionate about 5G. And Lena, thank you for doing the work that you're doing around safety issues in schools with children. This is incredibly important. So first question is, why are you so passionate? I think you've got 2 kids, so that's probably part of your answer, but I'll let you tell us.
I got my start fighting wireless in schools because children are our next generation and their reproduction capabilities needs to be preserved. And I mean, just getting down to the basics, preserving their bodies, their health, their minds. And to me, the irony is, why would they want to irradiate children in schools into thinking that it's a betterment for their education? How can they think when they're being zapped by microwave radiation coming from these industrial strength routers that are sitting above their heads, that are blasting down on them 24/7? That alone is enough to discombobulate their whole physiology, their psychology, their emotion, their learning abilities. That just didn't make sense to me. But then you combine it with laptops. If you've got 30 kids in a tiny room and they're all linking up to this router and you've got 5 antennas per laptop or iPad, you're looking at over 100 antennas beaming microwave signals bouncing around in that room. And what absorbs all this microwave energy? But the bodies, because our bodies are made of water. Water is perfect attenuators, absorbers of microwave radiation. If you understand how microwave radiation works in an oven, it attacks the water molecules. That's how your food heats up in the microwave oven. The microwave energy is sent into that piece of food and it absorbs all the microwave energy and it oscillates it and you get friction. But our bodies are living. We are biologically living entities. We do not need very much power. As a matter of fact, very subtle amount of power will affect our bodies. And to imagine that these kids are in these rooms, these classrooms, 6-7 hours a day, Monday through Friday, without the parents even knowing what's going on. See, there's no consent. There's also no parental consent. Here is where I think the InPower movement is also going to be a very great way to deliver this process, is to be able to also enable the notice of a liability to happen at the school, the education level, because the parents are unaware of what is going on with their children, that, hey, you may not know what's going on, but you send in this notice of liability, all the affidavit within that notice of liability is going to educate or tell, and the administrators, the superintendents, whoever's running the show, look, you're creating harm. This is a devastating event that's happening to every single child in every single school, private and public, in the United States and across the world. So for me, that was the start. And then, of course, I realized people's lack of education and understanding of such complex processes that's going on, microwave frequencies, and what is electromagnetic radiation, and then what is biology. People, bring all these elements together. People get confused and they kind of, throw their hands in the air and go, I give up. I trust the government. The government, FCC must know what they're doing. They're regulators.
Right.
They are anti-regulators. If you listen to Tom Wheeler's speech 2 years ago, 2016, he says, we are not going to let regulators stop us. We are not going to let the environmental issues and health effects stop us from rolling out 5G. We're not going to do any tests. We're not going to do scientific studies to see the effects. I have discovered in my research, I found declassified military reports talking specifically about microwave radiation and its effect on biology. There is plethora amount of material out there dating back in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, all the way to the 80s. They've known everything that microwave energy can do on the biological system by the time we were in our 80s, 70s, and 80s. So if you hear any activist and any leader that tells you, oh, the science is still out there, we need more studies. No, we don't. We have thousands, tens of thousands of studies that point to harm. So, yeah.
Awesome answer. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay, Cal, it's your turn. How and why and what got you started, and why are you so passionate about it at this point in your life? And please share as fully and as much as you'd like.
My journey started a few years ago, dealing with the court system, the justice system, and I'm smart enough to read acts and understand them, and I came up with really good arguments, even though I never went to law school. But I always failed in there. Like the ruling always went against me, even if I had the better argument. And I was banging my head against the wall, and trying to figure out what was going on in there. Through trial and error, I came up with what is really going on there. And once I discovered that, that's when my experience changed. And I had a lot of judges running out of the room, judges doing strange things in the room, emptying the courtroom, just a lot. So I knew I'd kind of hit the nail on the head. And I got myself free from that. And that's what my goal was. And I was done. Josh was a friend of mine, and he had done the movie, but he felt that although it showed the problems with smart meters, it didn't have a solution. So he said, what you've learned, can we apply it to the smart meters? And that's what I've done. And so we collaborated and formed this movement and started with the smart meters. We're now moving to 5G, vaccinations, chemtrails, some of the other issues that the same group of beings are behind. If you understand from my point of view, if you understand what I know, these beings have gotten themselves into these positions of so-called power through a system of legal, quote unquote, legal system, and it's done through claims. If you research enough, you can see the history going way, way, way back of how they've made these claims. And the claims stand in all realms. So you have to understand that this goes beyond this stuff on paper. These are agreements that go right back to source. Because source is just, there are contracts, in the Bible, they call them covenants. And so everything is done by contract, by agreement. And unfortunately, where we are today, we don't understand what has happened. And we have unwittingly joined into these types of contracts through our agreements and ended up on the wrong side of things. And that's why things are moving the way they're moving, because they have our tacit agreement. So part of what we're trying to do is, within their system of these contracts, we're basically saying no and changing our agreement to disagreement in a way that complies with their system. You can't say no, you have to conditionally accept. I don't want to get into all that, but that's just how it works. So what we're doing is we are conditionally accepting all these harms with conditions. And the conditions are monetary because the monetary system is their main system of control. Mm-hmm. They've made us believe in the idea of money, and you have to get to that kind of stage because money is an idea. It didn't come with the planet, and it doesn't have to be here. We've just agreed that that's how we're going to do transactions. So going with even what Max said, the Bitcoin thing and the cryptocurrencies are just another method of exchange. And if you really look at it, they're still based on the fiat system, which is dollars. They're still compared to the dollar, so they're not separate from the dollar. People talk in terms of, I got this many Bitcoins and it's worth this many dollars or this many yen or this many whatever it is, right? So it's not, it's still an illusion. And then going with what Lena said, you have to understand that if you are going to war, you do not get the consent of the country that you're overtaking or you're at war with. You put your weapons in there, and if it's against their laws, you don't care. You just put your weapons in. So you have to start thinking in these terms. These are what they're putting in here are weapons of war. You have to understand we're at war. It's not been declared officially, but that's what's happening. So you have to start thinking that we're under attack in a war situation, and the rules are different. So using your country or your state or your counties or your cities rules against something that's coming from a very high position in a warlike situation is not going to work. They don't care. What they do care about is their system of agreements with source. And if you go back far enough to ancient Babylon and even before that, and you understand how the system works, there are remedies within that system. It's just we just are ignorant of it. So part of what we're doing touches on that, even though it doesn't explain it, but it works in that type of system. So it can go very, very high for those that understand it, into spiritual realms, and it also works just on the ground in a money type situation for those that are a little less educated, but they do understand money and they understand I might owe something. That's a deterrent. So it's multi-dimensional, multi-layered.
Yes. Well, thank you for that. And thank you for broadening out our perspective and bringing in the multidimensional, because Sienna and I, in case you haven't already figured it out, we're all over this. And it's beautiful to bring it in and ground it and claim it and begin to turn this situation around. So thank you for that. And I would like to add that my perspective on these beings, which I have had personal encounters with, and going back to source, I do also offer a written remedy affidavit. An affidavit is not a contract. It is a witness of truthful accounting. And we use that to help people prepare to undo all of their contracts all the way back across all their multidimensional timelines to rescind and negate these contracts. So we get it. And that's something that I make available through living lessons. And people are actually having physical detox when they work with this document. That's how deep into us this weaponry goes. And I will chime in here that I have traced this, but well, we all know this goes back very, very far. But the steps, because we're dealing with beings who live on different timelines than we do, they really do. And steps where they began to prep us for where we are right now is with agriculture. That's where it began. That's how far back this goes. And I actually have a step-by-step progression of how they began with agriculture. And from agriculture, we began to have the idea of more than enough, of more than we need, of excess, of storage. And from there, we moved to the concept of money. And so I've gone way back with this, and the agricultural revolution, with every so-called revolution that was meant to benefit us, we've lost more than we've gained. And so that's just where I'm coming from, my particular angle in the healing work that I'm trying to do. Ask us to go back that far and to be stewards in how we go forward into the future. Okay, so we have a little video to show about what the InPower movement is doing. And there is a link to the Facebook Live. If you are enjoying what you're seeing right now, grab that link, copy it, and share it with your friends. You can jump in and jump out. We want to have as much viewership as possible. And we are going to really widely distribute this replay of this first event of ours. The video from InPower and the work that they've done, which is awesome. And thank you for doing it, Cal. Thank you for figuring this out.
So I sent the notice in on Tuesday, and I sent it to all the people that you sent to. It was 25, plus the 5 people that I already sent to. So that just happened on Tuesday. So the mail would have probably been, some of it might have got there yesterday, and some would be hitting today and or tomorrow. And we'll see what happens with that.
On January 30th, 2015, the CEO of Corix Utilities, the installer of these meters in British Columbia, received more than 100 notices of liability from people in Kelowna. On February 4th, he received a separate notice of default from Cal. On February 4th, the CEO of Corix Utilities resigned from office. It's worth noting that this action was also sent to the chair of the BC Utilities Commission, and in late 2015, he quietly resigned as well. Kelowna was one of the 3 initial groups that began to implement the liability action. Let's take a look at what's happened so far in the United States with groups in Seattle and Detroit. After being defaulted by just 21 people, 3 of the 9 Seattle City Council members announced they would not be seeking re-election, including one who resigned before her term was up. And on March 13th, the defaulted CEO of Seattle City Light, the 10th largest public utility in the nation, announced his resignation. In Detroit, it is all-out war. The utility DTE has cut electricity to several homeowners, including the elderly as winter approaches, as part of what could only be called a campaign of terror. After being defaulted by another 21 individuals, the Michigan Attorney General began calling for a free opt-out. 4 of the 8 Michigan Public Services Commission officers being held liable are no longer listed on the Commission website. And a city attorney in Warren, Michigan has also resigned, but not before sending a letter to one of the claimants stating that the utility has a budget of $20 million set aside for paying off state legislators. Especially at the outset, we can expect some resistance. In the Detroit C Group, 13 out of 14 who started with an analog meter have successfully kept it. The 14th was heavily propagandized and eventually accepted a supposedly disabled smart meter. And in New York, a lawyer named Andrew Pedersen wrote a commercial liability process very similar to our liability action.
To the governor, to the head of PSE&G, to the head of National Grid, to the head of New York Power Authority, and to the head of the New York State Public Service Commission. And I sent it out and I put them on personally, accept their oath of office, and I tell them that they're violating my rights, and if they don't stop violating my rights, I'm holding them liable for $300 million each. she got a phone call the next day after the letters went out, my letter, and it was then certified. And he said, "We're so sorry that I don't know why they were threatening you, but you don't have to have a smart meter. I'm sorry, you know we'll never turn your water off." So it does work.
I then spoke with an anonymous insider working at a utility where the executives are being held liable.
Well, I'm an employee with a major utility, and what the utility here has done is they have put together what seems to be like an actual war room filled with newspaper clippings, photos of the actual activist leaders themselves, photos of what people do to block the radiation. Some seem very successful. Copies of flyers for events, copies and photos of the locks with the notices beside them, with liability actually stated on the notices. And they're taking very seriously this action by people who are fighting back. They seem to be nervous about it. They don't seem to be as confident as they portray to be around here.
So here's the plan. Phase 1 was about seed groups with a limited number of participants. And while there is no way to say for certain what factors are involved in each resignation, liabilities are indeed resigning. With the launch of the InPower movement, we are now in Phase 2, and with your participation, along with thousands of others, our goal is to stop this agenda completely. While the same liability action can and will be used in Phase 3 for other major issues where harm is being done, the target at hand is to get these so-called smart meter devices off all of our homes and return to safe and sane technology.
Yeah, so that's the basis of what we're doing, and it works. It worked for me in the court system on different matters, and then it's getting the same effect that I got back then. Yeah, people basically trying to dodge it and stepping down, and so we want to have a mass action and get that, get that effect in a larger scale. The system that they have set up is pyramidical, and from my point of view, it's very complex, but it's also very fragile. It's based on a lot of deception, a lot of compartmentalization. So not everybody understands exactly what everybody is doing in their system. So it can be pulled apart. If you pull the right card out, the thing will collapse very quickly. So that is the overall plan.
Oh, thank you. That just brings tears. I'm so grateful that you are doing this work. So I have a couple questions for Cal and Lena. So what aspect of smart meters is the most troubling to you? A lot of people don't really realize the toxic effects, what's really going on. You spoke very well on the schools, but are there other aspects that are troubling to you? And if so, what are they?
Smart meters, the frequencies that are delivered is like going thousands of miles and then stopping. And this is what's happening to your cells. Imagine yourself as a tiny little cell, and the way the energy is being put out is so artificial. It's so contrary to what natural frequencies are about. Everything about our creation resonates in sine waves, simple oscillating waveforms that are like ocean waves. Think of the sunlight. Everything resonates. Even inanimate objects have a frequency. We all have signature frequencies. The only thing that does not exist on Earth are all these electromagnetic artificial frequencies that are being put out by all these wireless devices. Smart meter has a certain way of pushing out this frequency that is so toxic to your cells. And people all across the country and the world have been made sick, electrically sensitive, microwave sickness, as a result of this nefarious clandestine operation that has been happening worldwide for the last 10 years. This is UN operation. This is not just limited to the United States or your own personal country or within your own city. The fact that 2008, when Obama administration decided to make a lot of things wireless, it was the beginning of the end. Now, this all started with the Telecommunications Act of 1996, promoted by Bill Clinton's administration, that allows cell towers to be placed without any environmental oversight. So basically, if the government wants to put a cell tower anywhere, they can do so. That was the beginning. And, it goes all the way back to Bush administration, actually even way before, actually the beginnings of the early 1900s. Anyways, the difference with smart meters is that people didn't know. 2008, when Obama administration said, okay, we're going to change out all these analog meters into these wireless emitting devices, nobody knew about it. This was 2008. This was 10 years ago. And so you're looking at a global phenomenon. This wasn't just a microcosm that's happening. This is how effective the globalists are, or they are, that they are able to change something globally as simple as an analog meter and turn it into a weapon without us even knowing about it. And they've achieved it globally. This is why Cal movement, Cal and Josh have come up with this InPower movement, and it all originated with the Take Back Your Power. That was the start of the process to educate the people. Take Back Your Power, the one of the best movies out there regarding understanding frequencies, microwave frequencies, and how it ties in with the government on a larger picture. It's a full spectrum dominance. This is the beginning of the weaponry that the government is forcing onto our own private homes. And they're saying, ha, 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 we got away with it. This is only the beginning. 5G you haven't seen anything yet. And that is exactly the same words that Tom Wheeler makes in his speech. You haven't seen anything yet. But I agree, we need to take things step by step, and getting rid of the smart meters is a very important initial step. Now about the smart meters, this is something that no one can control. It emits 24/7 on your home, whereas you can turn your cell phone off. You can choose to use a cell phone or not. You can choose to have a Wi-Fi router or not. Although personally, please wire everything in your homes. Go back to wired phones, no deck phones, wire your computers, everything. Turn off your Bluetooth, turn off your cellular connections, when you're home, make it a safe haven. But the one thing you cannot control is the smart meter that's attached to your home, put on by the government, really dictated by the United Nations, which are run by the globalists, by the way. So this is the gravity of the situation with the smart meters.
That was really clear and heartfelt. Wow. Oh, my goodness. Thank you. Thank you. Cal, would you like to address what aspect of smart meters is the most troubling to you and why?
Well, like I said, it's a weapon. And as Lena said, the frequencies that are being put out by the meters and 5G and all the wireless is from the highest negative beings, if you want to put it that way. They're trying to stop and disguise the Schumann resonance, which is actually changing. And because we actually are from this planet and actually part of this planet, our makeup is the exact, we have the same water content, we have the same minerals, all that stuff. We belong here, and there are other beings who don't belong here. So I'll put that out there. And but our DNA is tied to the frequencies of the planet, and the planet is tied to the frequencies of the galaxy, and the galaxy is tied to and it goes on and on and on and on and on. And when you get into that kind of thinking, you're really talking about the concept of God. So there's a communication that's coming down, and we're supposed to be getting it, and our DNA is supposed to change, and they're trying to stop it in order to, I don't know how far you want to go with this, but I'll just say they're trying to stop it and turn us into something else. And our DNA is it's a receiver, and it doesn't discriminate, put it that way, unless you have an intention. If you can get some understanding of this, you can actually change things, because we do have that kind of ability. But most of us are so caught up in just the illusion of the 3D and TV and the Super Bowl and our cell phones. I take transit a lot, and what I see is 80% of the people like this. So number one, they have their phone on, so they're getting the frequencies. Number two, they are totally disengaged with whatever's going on in the world and are engaged with this little 5x3 gadget and are not paying attention. So we're very distracted, and the meters are basically here to number one, destroy us, because they're trying to destroy God and overtake God. That's really what this comes down to. And we are the attack point for that kind of thinking. So I know it's a bit much, but that's one of the reasons for it. Number two is to stop us from moving further towards that source thing, as the plan has been from the beginning. We are meant to actually evolve, expand, however you want to put it. And it comes through the frequencies of the planet, which is getting it from other sources all the way back to the beginning. And so the frequencies that are just this big soup of frequencies is trying to disguise, stop, change that event from happening.
Yep. Well said. And we are so in alignment with you, Cal.
You are speaking my language. Faux show. Okay, so I want to bring Max in here. Max, because you are doing your own light work. This is light work. This is love work. And thank you for doing it. And I'd like to ask you how you would approach encouraging people to realize that one of the primary steps they can take is no longer giving their consent, not only to the technological imposition, but to any other form of imposition coming down the line from this whole umbrella rollout. And we are empowered. And when we rescind our consent, it's done, it's over. So Max, let's give Max some time to jump into this. And
well, that's really what Cal's doing with all this. It's removing consent, by issuing this liability notice. It's removing consent, and it's important to understand. I've had a lot of people ask, why are these affidavits structured in such a biblical sense and all of this sort of stuff as well. It's like Cal said, that's the language that they use. The law that they use, that they abide by, whether you believe in it or not, whether you're a religious person or not, they are. And they have created this system, and they've structured this system in a certain way. And you've got to use that language because that's the language they honor. So you've got to put these affidavits in biblical form. I mean, even the foundation that I've got is constructed in using religious text, because it has to be done that way to work in their law. And that, like I said, that's the law they abide by. So you've got to understand it that way. And it's all a spiritual battle. You've got to understand that there's nothing that exists between you and the Creator, whatever you perceive that Creator to be. It doesn't matter whether you perceive it to be God or Allah or Yahweh or a giant robot. It doesn't matter. There's something that exists between you and the above. And government, it has no place controlling you. There's nothing that exists between you and the creator. So you're basically putting it back on them in their language, and understanding as well why using money as the term, like saying, if you don't do this, you're liable for $300 million. A lot of people will do that, and then they'll say, well, how do I get my $300 million? How do we follow it through? And how do we enforce this? And it isn't about that. It isn't about getting the 300 million. The money is the catalyst. It's the glue they use to hold the system together, but it's fiction. We just created the whole thing out of nothing. That's the beauty of this Bitcoin thing you're seeing. You watch that go up and down and up and down and up and down. You wonder how much you've actually got. It's not really there. It's only digits on a screen anyway, but even when it's there, is it really there? And how much is there? Because it changes all the time. It should show people how fictional this whole construct is. So it's not about getting some sort of financial reward for this. It's about using that catalyst that they use, the glue they use to hold the system together, against them, because that is the language that they understand. You don't want their money. They can keep their money. I just want to be free. I want to be able to go and plant a garden anywhere I want. So, it's understanding that. That's why this is a spiritual battle, and until people can get that focus, they're not going to find any way through it. They've got to understand the language that is used against them and understand what this has all been about. The whole thing is about, like Cal said, our tacit consent. We've got to remove that consent, and we've got to put it back on them and just ask why. Why we are required to do this. What makes you believe you have a right of ownership over me or anybody else? And realize that this is a war. We are at war. And that's what this 5G grid is. Now, some of the field tests they've done on 5G, and admittedly, they're saying we need it for the bandwidth. We need it for the bandwidth to run the Internet of Things, blah, blah, blah. And this is all very well. They do need it for the bandwidth. But underneath that, underlying the 5G system, is the fact that it's military-grade technology. It's going to be like we're all living permanently inside an airport scanner, because that's 5G technology. It's also can be used for microwave cannons. They can use it to lock down areas. They can use it to target individuals. In the field tests they did with this, they found that it boiled people's eyeballs in their sockets. And that's what they can do with this technology. And with everything we're constructing, like I said earlier, you've got to factor in the reality that the world is run by criminals. And if they're putting this system in place, for our benefit? These are the people who manufacture all these wars, who killed 262 million people, killed by their own governments in the last century. The people who are fluoridating us, vaccinating us, doing all of these things. Do you seriously think that they're doing this for our protection or to help us in any way? Of course they're not. So we've got to look at this and look at what tools are being used against them and how we can use those tools, or what tools are being used against us and how we can reverse it and use those tools against them. And that's what this is all about, and that's what Cal's done with this liability notice, is he's found the way to do that and simply say, hey, here's the studies. It's now lodged under your law, if that's what you're going to call it, and now you're going to be held liable. And it's the language they understand. And if we get no satisfaction in any of this, well, perhaps it will demonstrate to people that there is no law. There is all this legal fiction is just fiction anyway. And the only law that really needs to exist on this earth is natural law. And natural law would say that these people will be held, liable for their actions and accountable for their actions, which is another reason why they're bringing in all this politically correct ideology and all this stuff as well, to repress our emotions, because, you're not allowed to feel anything anymore. Because if people really were to look around and look at this and see what they're really doing, they'd get angry about what's happening. And it would be wholesome, righteous anger that they have every right to feel. And they would want to hold these people accountable, and natural law says that these people will face the consequences of their actions, whether it's under their law or whether it's under natural law, that remains to be seen. But we have to see what is being used against us and use those tools against them and get this whole concept of doing it for financial gain out of our heads. It's not what it's about. I'm not putting a $300 million liability notice against you because I want $300 million. I'm doing it because I want to be free and I want you to stop what you're doing. And that is the whole thing. I don't want the money. I just want you to go away. And that's what we have to get into our heads. We're at a real turning point here. And we've got a lot of technology and we've got a lot of power at the moment. And with great power comes great responsibility. And we have a responsibility to stand up for ourselves now. So really that's what it's all about. You know, that's how to remove our consent from these people, is to rediscover who and what we are. You know, and I always say to people, put the common unity back in people, discover who you are and see the perfection of yourself so that you can see it in others, because that normalizes the politicians. They're nothing special. Why are you idolizing they're people? They're all people who are our employees, who all sit in abuse of the office that they hold by giving themselves powers they have no right to have. They're all in breach of the laws that they create that enslave us. So there is no law. So let's revert to something like natural law and ask these questions and hold these people accountable. You know, time to grow a collective backbone and stand up for ourselves and do this the way it needs to be done. Re-embrace the warrior spirit, get back to our divinity, the divine masculine and the divine feminine. We need the divinity in both genders to re-establish itself in the human condition.
Yes. Big resounding yes. Thank you, Max. Very eloquently stated. And there are other things that are coming through the shift, the event, whatever you want to call it. And I happen to be someone who's very aligned with the other things that are coming through. And I think there's a beautiful co-creation in the making, where humanity becomes the point at which we turn the energy and everything realigns with source, everything realigns with Gaia and her accelerated evolution. And this is the moment, this is the time, and we're it. And our DNA is actually coded to do this task. And our DNA is changing and going along with Gaia's evolution, regardless of the frequencies. And I would love to assure you that I work with frequency. We're in the age of frequency, and I'm bringing through frequencies that are antidotes for much of what's going on here, and that can't be stopped. So let's move forward. And is it time for us to take our little break?
Sounds good to me. Yeah, you ready for a short break? Yeah.
Facilities, and then what we'd like to do, we would like to invite Lena and Cal to continue on with us as long as you feel comfortable and your time allows, probably through the question and answer portion. And then we're very happy to let you go and spend your time with your families. It's a good thing to do on a Saturday. I'm going to the movies later with mine. We're going to go see A Wrinkle in Time. But yes, let's take a little break, and we'll be back. Let's maybe 10 minutes? And part of that will be just moving around, and then Sienna and I would like to share more of what we do with this wonderful audience that we have today. We would very much like to invite everyone who's participating today to please lend their support, and you can do it by way of love, by way of action, by way of engagement, and by way of money, to support both InPower and support Max by donations. And I think we're all set up with links in the chat to help you do that. Or you guys can share whatever links you would like people to lend their support to use.
Max, if you'd like to share your Patreon.
You'll find a link on my website, thecrowhouse.com.
Okay, I'll put that in chat. And Cal?
Yeah, there is something there. I don't know what it is, but there's something there, yeah.
We'll figure it out before we end today.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so important to support our heroes and our warriors, the people that have led the good fight for so long. And because these people are, I think Max, this is his whole life. He's completely dedicated to it. And so these are the people where we want to put our financial support. These are the people that we want to show up for, because we know the money is going to be used for what we want it to be used for, which is almost never true on the planet. So I really encourage you, even if it's a few dollars, it can really add up for these guys. And it can, keep them going and keep them fortified and keep them active. So please do consider, again, even if it's just a small amount, that would be so wonderful.
I think this might be a good time for me to inject a little social context by queuing up that clip. What do you think, Adrian? All right. Just for fun.
And I want to say a little something about we have a free come as you are wake up cafe every Friday night on Rise Multiversity. We hang out and we hang out and we share movies that have truth. To come out of isolation and be together and see what's going on in a fun way. So we just did this one last time. And if any of you just want to dip your toe into coming out of isolation with other people who are awakening to the truth of our world, Wake Up Cafe every Friday. So here's the movie we played last week.
5 p.m. Last night, 5 p.m.
Last night, yes. Last night.
This, for me, was just so apropos of what we're talking about today.
There isn't a single aspect of ship operations that's not under his control. If he were proven to be malfunctioning, I wouldn't see how we'd have any choice but disconnection.
Computer out of control, running everything.
There you have it. You imagine your smart refrigerator and you're sitting down to breakfast with your fellow revolutionaries and you're having what you think, well, you would know better. It's a private conversation. Don't think that these things won't be able to lip read. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Not saying anything else. I'm going back to shut down the movie. There are a number of things that I've developed recently and over the course of the last 2 years. One of the things that I am offering to people as a very sort of low bar, why don't you just try it and see what happens, is my written remedy affidavit, which, Gaia gave it to me as a gift. She dictated and I wrote it down. And she was like, just give it to people. Just make sure they can have access to it. Amazing. This came out in November. People are using it now. It is a spiritual document. And because of the depth and breadth of my experience as an energy healer and the work that I've done around the planet, this is a very, very effective and powerful document. So I think the link to that is in the chat.
And it's you didn't say the full title. It's the written remedy
affidavit. And it's available in Spanish as well. We had someone translate it for us. And it uses the memory of water. Water is included in the process of working with this affidavit. And that's a very important detail that I want people to be aware of. I'm doing a lot of work right now with frequencies and the water of memory, the memory of water. Okay, then 2 years ago, again, based on my experience and the relationship that I have with Source and the planet, I was gifted with the opportunity to create a very simple, relatively simple, easy to grasp course on the science of conscious co-creation. And I take people through the many levels of how we move from manifestation, which is service to self, which is what all these beings who are coming out with this weaponry, they're coming from the place of service to self, and how we come out from under that difficult misunderstanding of our relationship to life and source, and we move into conscious creation, which is a shared dynamic service to ourselves and to others. So that's my conscious co-creation course. It's Co-Creation Catalyst 101. We're starting a new cycle next week. You can sign up immediately. I'm giving a 10% offer for people who are here today. And then lastly, which I think is really important, as a healer, I understand how the system of separation and the three aspects of the Orion Consortium, the snake culture, the dragon culture, red and white, and other cultures of these, they're off planet. They're not from here. That information, these are frequency templates that actually are embedded in our biology, our neurology, and in our cellular material. And I'm now working with people on a frequency level and on an educational level to come out of the construct and to begin to work consciously with these templates one by one and get them out of our systems and clear us. So these are the educational opportunities that I've been working with Living Lessons Library for the last, Started about 2 years ago in terms of these really structured programs, as it was clear we would be where we are now. So that's my spiel for today. Obviously, I also do personal self-empowerment coaching and group work as well. So that's my offer to you. I do hope you'll check it out. I'm on board. Let me just say that.
Yeah, and I hope you don't take offense of us sharing our offerings. We're pretty passionate that this is the outer action is crucial and essential, but the inner action is as crucial and essential. And coming out of separation and doing the inner work required to get us well enough, even. Is a major, major task and challenge. So we're doing this from our heart. And so this is Sienna Lea again. Really where my heart is, where my offering is in the shadow synthesis work that I'm doing now. And this is small groups of people that we're working intimately together, coming out of separation, really working with the wounded aspects of ourselves that have bought into the lies. And have disconnected from our true potential, our authentic embodied self, our connection to the planet and source. It's a process to heal that. It takes love, and it takes self-love, and it takes consistent, deep effort, and it takes facing some harsh realities within and without. We're so... a lot of why we're in the state we're in is we're defended and shut down from the onslaught of so much pain over so many generations. We just can't face this to even know how to begin, how to show up for it. Our hearts have been armored and defensive, and we are coping with a lot of wounding, enormous amount of wounding all over this globe and all over this world. So this work is ready to take on the healing of that wounding. And each one who does it for us all and creates a space. And I see, so it's Shadow Synthesis. We're starting a new round soon, shadowsynthesis.com. Of course, we're all on Rise on our mentor page, Sienna Lea. And I saw it to go there now.
And then I just want to say, we don't come at this lightly. I've been doing this work for 30 years, and I've been doing it around the world. 30 years.
Yeah.
People ask me, what do? I tell them I change lives, and that's no joke. So we're very dedicated. My personal inner work happens every day, and it's happened every day for 30 years. So we got a foundation, and we really do believe that this is the kind of education that doesn't happen in our schools. And we want to make sure that it's available to people and they go for it. Okay. Yeah?
Okay. Yeah.
Questions and answers, we hope. Okay.
Onwards.
Nicola asks, do you know, given the differences between legal systems in different countries, how directly the notices of liability served in the US might transfer to other legal systems, i.e. the UK? Or are you aware of anyone trying to initiate parallel proceedings in other countries?
Do you want to take that, Cal?
Yeah. We're well aware of the different underlying legal systems. There, in Western culture, there are two main ones, and that's civil law and the common law. But commerce is actually operates beyond that, and so therefore it works in every country. It's very ancient, and that's what people don't understand it, but it's been disguised, and so most people are unaware that it's even operating. So we do address, mostly so people can actually touch it, we do address statute law a little bit, and then the common law or the civil law. But it's mostly commerce is how this works, and which is lex mercatoria. And then going further back, it's an ancient Babylonian system. So in the Bible, what is described as our lack of a better word, enemy is called Babylon, mystery Babylon. And you'll read it in Revelation 18, Daniel 2, Jeremiah 25. And it explains that it's a commercial system that has been put here by those that don't belong. And it's a system of control. But there are rules. And once you understand the rules, there are remedies in there. They're just not telling us. So you have to kind of glean what to do so that it's legal in their eyes. And then they have no standing with source that we're agreeing with this, because we've come within their system, said no in a certain way, and therefore they can't stand before God and say, no, everything's fine, and they're agreeing with all our contracts, right? So it's kind of like that. So in answer to the question, yes, commerce works for every country around the globe, because it's operating at a higher level than all the countries' laws, et cetera. It's a whole other system that's been here for a very long time.
That's exactly right, and that's the problem I've been having with people saying that they've been finding these affidavits. That's the problem I've been having with people, is they've been saying, well, what's going on with all this biblical language? They need to understand that is the language that these people deal in, and it is their contracts that they are so intent on keeping their contractual honor that we have to speak in that language. That's why you have to use these terms, and you'll find that these affidavits exist in all countries, and they all basically work in UCC, which is this commercial law that Cal's talking about, which is above governments. This is what governments base their whole governmental system on. So they can't deny this law, no matter how much you think it's fiction. There's a whole movement of freeman people out there that say, oh, even if you're stepping into that, you're stepping into their fiction. They're not understanding how these contractual obligations work, and that if you want them to back down, you have to do it in their language, because that is the only language they will obey. And you'll find these affidavits are in every country. And if you did want to pursue it, I mean, you could do it by making claims against the people anyway, if you really wanted to pursue that. But to do that, you have to do the spiritual work to know who you are. A lot of people will say, well, how can I make a claim against a politician? The legal fees will be enormous. A lawyer can't even make a claim against a politician. Only a man can make a claim against another person, another man, for the damage, the harm they've caused. And you do that through certain documentation as well, which is got to be done in the right way. You got to use the right type of inks. You got to sign it in the right way, or blah, blah, blah. But that's a process you'd have to go through for those people who really want to push this through and get some remedy and get some accountability from these people. But if you haven't done the spiritual work to know how to stand in that yourself and go into their realm as a living man and do that, then you can't expect to find any remedy. You're not going to get your $300 million or whatever, and it's never been about that. It's about speaking in their language, so they have to understand that if they pursue the matter any further, they're in breach of their own contracts, which means they will not be able to, be honourable in their law. So that's the way it has to work. I think I explained it right, but that's kind of how it works, And you'll find these affidavits are in every country. They already exist. And what Cal has done is he's used the smart meters as a means of showing how you do this. It's like if you want to find liability, like you've got no opt-out process in your country or something, they're saying it's our law, you've got to have these meters on, that's the way it is. Well, if you lodge the affidavit showing the harm that is caused, and then you make the claim, say, if you're going to pursue the matter, I'm prepared to make the claim against the individual, that's when they back down, because, you have to be prepared to do that. You're stepping above the whole thing. Even if they've got an opt-out, a no opt-out policy in your country or whatever, by lodging these affidavits and showing the harm caused, once you lodge the affidavit, it becomes a truth in law in their system, and they have nowhere to go from that point. It doesn't matter if they've got a no opt-out process, Yeah,
that's exactly right. And so you have to understand the hierarchy of jurisdiction. It comes down to jurisdictions, and jurisdictions are multi-layered. So there's the lowest jurisdiction, and then there's a jurisdiction above that, and above that, and above that, and above that, and it really carries on forever. There is no, if you can conceptualize this, the fact that never stops. There's always a higher jurisdiction. Now you're into, again, the concept of God, and that's the final jurisdiction. And then if you understand what happened when Adam was put here, based on the biblical story, he breathed into something that came out of the ground. And if you understand breath, that means that the full divinity put himself in that being, and they know it. We just don't know it. We don't know who we are, as Max said. And once you understand who you are, you have the authority. We were given dominion, and we have given it to somebody else because they made some claims, and we didn't stop those claims or come with a higher claim within that system. So we have to understand how this all came about and how to undo it. It's not that difficult conceptually to undo it. You still have to actually do something, but and it's going to be a long road. But it's the concept of how to get out of this is quite simple.
We can get out. We're going to pause you there so we can get to some more questions. If you're okay with that, Cal, thank you, Cal and Max.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of questions, so I'll just go through them in sort of random order so that it gives, fairness to as many people as possible. Marvin asks, can we use your understandings of common law against the maritime law system as practiced in the US?
Maritime law is a bit of a misnomer. There is maritime law, and then there was the commercial law, and the commerce started when the countries started to interact commercially, and they had these what were called fairs where merchants would come and sell their wares in different countries, but they were all coming from different customs and laws. So there was the Lex Mercatoria kind of came up, and they had their own tribunals, their own court system. But it was done very quickly because of the nature of boats leaving, merchants leaving. It was very transient. So you had to have quick judgment. So the court system now has taken those principles, and now they have things called summary judgment, where they can make judgments very quickly, not based more on evidence, but based on form. That's the best way I can put it, on how things were done, not so much the truth, somewhat on truth, but mostly on how the truth was presented. So the common law took over the pie powder courts and the staple courts in Europe, so that all of that jurisdiction got kind of put into the common law, but they just kind of kept it quiet. And as generations went on, we're unaware that this has happened. But those commercial principles and laws and customs are still in operation. So admiralty is actually more to do with ships specifically, but it tie in with the commerce because most of the ships were shipping. So there's this idea of this admiralty thing. It's a bit of a misnomer, but yes, in answer to the question, common law has taken over and incorporated admiralty and then the commercial system, the Lex Mercatoria.
Cool. Next question.
Okay. Kate asks, how do you with a municipal utility that doesn't offer an opt-out and says they will shut your power off if you replace the smart meter? They aren't federated, mandated. How do they get away with this? I just read that verbatim.
As I was saying before, if you lodge the affidavit, show the harm that the meter is causing. Like Cal's prepared all this for you. He's got these affidavits. You'll find if you go to probably your post office in whatever country you're in, you'll get an affidavit form at your local post office. You can adapt that, what Cal's written on that smart meter form for your own country, and then lodge that as an affidavit, get it notarized, lodge it so it becomes a truth in law, and then say, well, it doesn't matter if you've got an opt-out, a no opt-out option, because here it is as a truth in law showing the damage this is doing. If you're going to continue this on here, you've agreed by this affidavit that you're liable for these damages to the tune of $300 million each for the person that, the people that have installed it or whatever, I mean, however he's done the process. I mean, you're going to find these affidavits exist. You just got to lodge that. You've got to actually go out and do the groundwork yourself and lodge that as a truth so it becomes a truth in law. It doesn't matter if they've got a no opt-out. They've got to rebut that affidavit and show that this isn't causing harm, because you're showing that it is causing harm. And causing harm is the ultimate crime. That's why we've got a legal system, isn't it? To prevent people from causing harm against other people. So when government is just causing harm and these smart meters are causing harm and all this is causing harm, and you can show that by your affidavit, and they've agreed with it because they haven't rebutted the affidavit, so it's lodged as a truth in their legal system, what are they going to do? They've got nowhere to go. They've got to rebut that in order to say that there can even be a no opt-out option, you know?
Awesome.
Yeah, that's the power of this. It's how it's done. You can sign petitions and you can go to your utility hearing and you can say all these things, but until it's in affidavit form, they just ignore it. So it's the form, it's the way it's done, and they can't ignore if you use their system against them. They can't ignore it because that's what they're standing before God and saying, hey, no, everything's great here. They're agreeing with all this, so we can roll all this out. So
exactly.
When we come with the form, you remove that claim that they have standing before Creator that everything's okay here. It's not okay because there's a bunch of forms in your system that say it's not.
Exactly. They're saying this is a paper-based reality. I mean, they're writing all this stuff down on paper and they're subjecting you to it. You're just putting this into their paper-based system and saying, well, here's a piece of paper that says you're full of shit. And if you continue with this, you're going to be held liable for your actions. And if you're not, and if you're going to go forward with this, well, congratulations, you've just shown the world that there is no law. So we'll revert to natural law and you will face the consequences of your actions, because we're all going to get pretty pissed off at this point, because we're going to realize that you've been hoodwinking us for the last couple of thousand years and we're not real happy about it. You know, I mean, at the very least, even if you get no response from them through this, you've alerted the people to the fact that they're being scammed, that the world is run by criminals and they've all got you hoodwinked by this paper-based system, this paper-based reality. You know, well, if we're going to be ruled by their paper, well, it has to apply evenly. And all we're doing is saying, well, hang on, it says here in your legal system that this is causing a whole bunch of damage and you're causing harm. So guess what? You're liable. That's the way it is. And if the legal system won't do it, well, I'll make a claim against you myself. And you can even do that. You could go in there and you could make the claim. You could just write down the claim against the individual, sign the document like you do. And there's a process to it. I mean, this is a whole nother thing going back into common law. And like I said, if you're not spiritually aware enough to really go in and do this, then don't even try. Don't even take it on, because you'll just get yourself in trouble. But there is a process of doing this if you want to push it forward. But that's the thing. You've got to speak in their language. You know?
We will. We'll help people get spiritually aware, Max. We'll help them prepare. We'll help them.
Well, you know, like the way you'd lodge a claim against someone. Like I said, a lawyer can't even do it. But you'd have to write out the document properly. You'd be saying, well, here's I'm claiming this against this person, this man in this office who's sitting in this chair, who's in abuse of this office. You'd be writing it out in blue ink, because it's got to be red and blue because they're the colors of blood. So you wouldn't use full stops, because the full stop indicates the end of a document, the end of a thought. So you'd be using colons all the way through it. You'd be signing it in blue ink. You'd put a thumbprint in red ink, because that's the color of blood. This is the advice that I've received anyway on how to make claims. But like I said, it's a process. But if you are prepared to make that document and lodge that document, you better be spiritually aware enough to go into their realm to uphold it, because they're not going to. But if you do that, you're speaking their language and they have nowhere to go from that. You know, I know people that have used these processes. I know a friend of mine who's actually got an American passport as an American, not as a United States citizen, but as an American. And he travels on an American passport. And he travels the world and he gets away with it. And he applied for it in the right way using this method. And it works. You can exempt yourself from the system. But again, that's the problem. A lot of people just want to exempt themselves so that I'm free, I'm out of the system, I'm good. But you're not. You're ignoring the reason you even wanted to become free is because this system is dragging the world off a cliff, and it's dragging the whole world with it. And guess what? You're still part of the world. We need to address this system. So we need to start using this system against themselves and start holding these criminals accountable and holding them liable for their actions. But I can't lead you to safety. Cal can't lead you to safety. You've got to be aware of yourself. and do this yourself. Here's the process. It's as simple as writing a few forms, getting them notarized and lodging your truth and saying, well, this is my truth. And it's now a truth in your law. So you can't breach that, because if you do, there is no law. So who are you to hold any sway over me anyway? And who are you to hold sway over me anyway? Who are you people? You're doing things we don't employ you to do. We employ you to manage infrastructure, and you've reduced that to racketeering.
Max, I love your passion, but we have some other questions.
Sorry, yeah.
That's okay. Don't apologize.
Actually, it's another question for Max by Alex. Max, do you know where there are copies of these affidavits that are specific for Australia, that are similar to the NOL that Cal is producing? I am hoping to help InPower translate these NOL in Australian specific terms, and this sort of Aussie specific docs would really help me.
Well, you should, like I said before, you should be able to get affidavits from the post office. You should be able to go to a post office, or even possibly a traffic, road transport place somewhere, some legal, sort of half legal place, and just get a form, say like an affidavit form. Where do I get one, please? They'll direct you to where you can get one, and then take Cal's document that he's written out and adapt it to the Australian form. But, again, be aware of the biblical language or the canon language. It's got to be in that language in order to be in their language. So even if you're not religious, that's the way you have to speak to them. So, but you'll get one probably from the post office, I'd say.
Okay, thank you. Paul asks, who is willing to make NOL claims against the 5 US FCC commissioners? Wouldn't that be the most direct way to fight the 4G, 5G antenna densification scheme?
It's a good idea.
Good call.
Let's let Lena have a go. You got some information ready for me?
Okay, so we're fighting the 5G by calling it the close proximity microwave and radiation antennas, CPMRAs. I came up with this title specifically to cover 5G, but not limited to 5G. It took me a long time I spent a lot of time mulling over how to approach the wireless issues regarding the rest of the infrastructure, because there is so much. Before you know it, they've devised a new wireless gadget, they've devised a new wireless infrastructure, and we're not privy to this knowledge because they knew in advance what they were going to roll out and when they were going to roll out and how, what, when, and where. Because we're not privy to this, I wanted to create an NOL that was broad enough to encompass the 5G, but not limited to it. So the close proximity will incorporate not just the 5G, but the existing 4G that are on existing light posts, utility posts, sides of buildings, wherever. So it's not up to us and say, oh, hey, is that a Wi-Fi hotspot that's right outside my home? Or is that a Verizon cell antenna on top of that billboard? No, that's not our job to figure out these things. One thing they all have in common, they all emit microwave radiation. So the CPMRA, close proximity microwave radiation antennas, is going to incorporate anything that is close to humans, living spaces, workspaces, community centers, public spaces, anywhere where people hang out. If you can see it, it's close. Okay, so we're not even going to make a definition of, oh, is it within 500 yards or a mile or 10 feet from us? No, we're close proximity. Okay, it's in close proximity to humans. So that's going to incorporate 5G, it's going to incorporate 4G, and we all know what 5G is going to do. It's going to put all these on utility poles, light poles, anything that has a structure. It could be on the side of a building, on top of a building, on top of billboards. They'd hide it everywhere, okay? So what I've done with my team is I've asked my team to start pulling photos of what they look like, because they're new, right? They're this is a new infrastructure, and it's being rolled out right now. So by giving people visual access, they'll open their eyes to, whoa, I've never seen these antennas before. Where did they come from? They popped out of nowhere. So by educating the public, the people, we're empowering them. So that will be, the first step is giving them, educating them, giving them visual access. And then once they recognize what these things look like, then they can start rolling out the NOLs. Now, I don't care if they're Wi-Fi hotspots, which they do exist. And I have a building biologist who do wonderful work across the country, and he's found hotspots where it's made families ill, and they found them like right outside their homes. Really strong Wi-Fi routers, and it just cell antennas for cellular connections. So that is one aspect. Okay, that's dealing with one part of the infrastructure. We've got a lot of issues going on here, and this is full spectrum domination. Okay, we've got the geoengineering, we've got the vaccines issues. So with the wireless, I've basically broken it down to proximity, right? So there's going to be an NOL that's going to focus on satellites. Elon Musk's, his SpaceX program, where he's already sent, I don't know, what is it? His plan is 1,600. Probably it's over 1,000 satellites within the next few years. He's already sent up many this year, 2018. So that, satellite NOL, that's one. And then we're going to go down to a more terrestrial, and that's going to be the cell towers. Okay, so we're going to have the cell tower NOL. And then the third NOL will be the CPMRAs, which is the close proximity antennas. That's, it's outside of people's homes, businesses, schools, neighborhoods. And then from there, I'm going to focus on the NOLs that's going to focus on wearable, injectable, ingestible wireless gadgets, okay? And that is part of the full spectrum dominance. These are things that are reality. People don't believe it. The FCC actually has it in their New Year's resolution dated 2016. Injectables, ingestibles, wearables. They're just getting us primed to accept the artificial intelligence, transhumanist connectivity, where we are going to give up our human rights. Our minds, our consciousness, our physical bodies, our spiritual bodies, our soul, everything, we're going to give it up, and we are slowly giving it up. And as Cal had mentioned about people being absorbed by their phones, that's a black box, that's scrying. We're giving up our consciousness. We are giving up our consciousness, and people are already acting AI. Yeah. There's a hive mind going on already without a physical implantation of these devices, because their minds are no longer present. We are not exchanging frequencies in a physical way between people to people. There is so much about frequencies we do not understand that goes beyond the physical.
Right. Absolutely.
And you understand, Anaiis, about the water.
I do.
I've been reading Masaru Emoto's water books.
Yeah.
Yes, and the two words, he says brings healing to our universe, is love and gratitude.
Yep.
And so I pray those words every day now.
Yep.
And when I'm really stressed, I force myself those two words, and it calms me down. So, because there's a lot of assaults we are being faced with, and it is overwhelming. So apart from, some of the practical solutions that this forum is bringing to the audience, which is getting rid of the smart meters, that is your number one goal, folks, getting rid of the smart meters with the smart meter NOL. Second is the inner workings within your own being is to just utter the words love and gratitude. Practice those towards yourself and towards others.
Okay, I just have to say, I'm just now putting out for beta testing a line of frequency essences that go well beyond this, and I have 22 of them already.
Awesome.
Ready to go, and they're specifically in response to this nonsense, and I'm delighted to be making them available to the public very soon. We're going beyond the level of infoceuticals, and we won't be growing crops of botanicals and disturbing the earth any further to grow crops of botanicals and then destroy them. So this is pure frequency and water. It's happening now. They're being shipped. It's very exciting. Thank you for that, Lena, because we've got to take a broad spectrum approach. And we're doing it. But this part, this education part, is so critical. We are dealing with black magicians. We need to just say that. This is black magic. The language is black magic. The frequencies are black magic. So let's just put that all on the table and let's move forward. Okay, I'm going to be quiet now because there's more questions, but thank you so much for that. I'm so excited that you are engaged in this way. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Zen asks, if a corporation is knowing causing harm, you can directly pull their charter. A grand jury can do that. Corporations run by charter, by the consent of the people. If they cause harm, the people can pull their charter. It's the charters you need to go after. If we make a process to do that, the corporation will think twice before causing harm. Is there any response to that?
Well, again, you'd use the same process with the affidavits. You've got to figure out what that harm is and identify that harm, and then lodge it as an affidavit, so it becomes a truth in law. And he was saying in that question that he can help you with that. So I mean, it would be a similar process. I mean, that's the thing with this process of liability and these affidavits. By lodging them as a truth in law, you can tackle virtually any issue. You just have to coherently identify the harm that has been caused, so that when you lodge it as a truth, it can't be rebutted. It's like with vaccinations and things. If you're going to lodge an affidavit to show the harms that it's been caused by vaccinations, you need to positively identify that harm in a way that it can't be rebutted, so it becomes a truth in law, and then they stand liable if they continue the program. It's the same thing,
Okay, so here's where I want to get really clear, because we're offering people a call to action before they leave here today. So I want to make sure we are really clear of one absolute crystal clear call to action. My sense is that the best thing we can do today is direct people directly to InPower, to get engaged and to find out more, to get educated and to get activated. And for that person who just asked that question, it sounds to me like you have an idea that needs more exploration, may need some support, and you may be able to make a contribution in that particular niche of where all of this is being embedded and understructured. So please, call to action is to go directly to InPower and get engaged, right? So if you make a donation, that's wonderful. But in my local area, I'm working with a state legislator to look at the liability issues for the state of Pennsylvania around this. And I've got an open ear. So we can each find a way that we can make a contribution. But today, our clear call to action is to get you engaged with InPower. I want to make sure we don't lose that piece of what we're doing here today.
Yeah, further to that, the grand juries would work in the United States if they were actually up and functioning. It would be a beautiful thing, and there's a group that's working on that. I think they've got a few states up. And then you've got to be able to get the military to actually honor it as well, which I believe in this day and age, they are looking for that. But so what the writer of that thing was, he's operating in a jurisdiction. So, and it's valid, but you want to operate in the highest jurisdiction that you can possibly fathom to get the most result. So if you can like Max said, if you can get yourself spiritually understand who you are and where you sit in all of this reality, and then operate from there, that's where you're going to get the most effect. So the NOL as it's written works. I don't care who you are, this thing will make sense to you. You can operate at a very high level with this document, or you can operate in the grand jury. It will work there as well. So it's multi-dimensional, multi-jurisdictional. So you could actually do the NOL and then take it to a grand jury, and it would stand in there.
Okay, thank you. Hajimu has just shared something in the QA to do with affidavits that Australia is an asset owned, and he points to emfwarriors.com as well, which I believe Cal, you've had interaction with in your podcast.
Yeah, like Max said, an affidavit there's nothing magical about it. What it is a document that you've stated truths. And because it's an affidavit and it's been sworn, it becomes the truth, even if it's a lie. That's what I don't want to mislead people. It becomes the truth because it's an affidavit in their system. So that's how they've been able to manipulate the system, because nobody rebuts any claims that they make. So when you use an affidavit, you now have in their system put a truth in there because it's an affidavit. And if it's not rebutted, it stands as truth in their law and in commerce. And that's the key. So you can go, an affidavit is not a unobtainable thing. It's very common. Like you can find them on the internet. There's many examples of it. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. It becomes a truth in law, in their law. It doesn't necessarily have to be a truth, but if we're dealing with these issues, the effects that we're outlining actually are truths. So they're not going to be able to rebut them. I mean, if we were to go in and look through their legal system, we'd probably be able to rebut every claim they've made against us. But the problem is we don't know that these claims have been made against us. And when we try to rebut these claims or do something about it, we go and petition them. We ask them, will they please be nice to slave masters and treat us a little kinder, please? That's not going to work. You got to realize what the system is, and then we'll step into that. If you're going to claim truths against me, which are non-truths, and by my tacit agreement, I'm allowing you to enslave me to these, well, I'm going to go into that system and I'm going to lodge an actual truth and incorporate into that this liability that you're going to agree that you're liable for the damages you're causing by this truth I've lodged, because here it is, here's the damage that you are doing, and you are agreeing that if you continue this, you're liable. And that's in your legal system. If you don't abide by it, then there is no legal system. So what are you enslaving me to in the first place? So they've got nowhere to go. It's a checkmate for them. You're just speaking in their language. And really, the problem is that people are attaching this whole monetary game to it. I want my $300 million. It's not about that. The money is just the glue. That's just the language they understand that you can use against them. So, that's the way it is.
Do we have time for one more question?
I'd like to ask just these last two. Just these two. I think this would be quite useful. Vinita, I hope I've said your name right. What technology is available right now for neutralizing the microwaves, i.e., that we can wear or have in our homes?
Some people say organoid. I'd suggest a sledgehammer is good. When they try to install the smart meters on the home, I'd be saying, look, I've got a sledgehammer here, and by the time you get to your car, I'm going to have it smashed off the wall, so there's no point putting it on there to begin with. And if you're going to continue, well, hey, look, I've got this affidavit lodged, and guess what? You're going to be held liable. You can continue if you want. It'll be $300 million. Thank you. Try that approach,
All right. And Christine asks,
Can I just say something about I studied orgone generators and orgonite, and it's very effective.
Mm-hmm.
But as I got deeper into it and the ramifications of it, going into scalar waves and all this thing, I realized that the human body is an orgone generator. It has the same ingredients. And therefore, like I said before, each person, if you can figure out how to do this, you can stop the effects of the radiation.
Absolutely.
We have that ability. We just don't know it. So I'll just throw that out there.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Cal. And in the interim, those of us who do know how to do it and do know that we can do it are doing it. I've got all kinds of things going on. I do hope you'll reach out to me, because at that level, I am so empowered, you can't believe it. Okay, so let's make that happen, right? Reach out to me. Let's do everything we need to do. Wake yourself up, get yourself going, be your own scalar wave. It's fun. It's fun. Okay.
But in the meantime, as a go-between, like Max said, Orgonite is and orgone generators are very effective.
I'm actually wearing a pendant, a device. This is a shungite.
Yep.
With a twisted sage heart, copper twisted wire that's in an infinity shape. It has no end. There's no connect. It's fully. It's an infinity motion of protection here. So I wear this.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. One more question.
Okay. We'll make this the last question. Christine asks, how close of proximity will these 5G devices be implemented in rural areas? I live in rural Maine, where anything artificial stands out like a sore thumb, and there are literally miles and miles of woods and barrens between villages.
I can answer that one. I know in the United States, there are over 40 bills in place this year that are basically all infrastructure related to 5G and related. And they're all varying from, FirstNet to infrastructure within the cities. But I believe more than a quarter of these bills, over 10, maybe probably about a dozen of them, are focused on attacking the rural areas. And this is why Elon Musk needs to be stopped, because the satellites that he's sending into space is basically, his desire is to blanket the entire globe and send it through space onto the Earth that way, so that we have no ability to take a sledgehammer to it. And will we be able to escape it globally? No. You can go onto the open ocean and be zapped. So that is their ultimate end game. This is their tool. They have many tools up their sleeve. They're already utilizing probably most of them. But the nefarious issue with 5G, I'm going to explain it very briefly, is it should not be called 5G. It is really infinity G. It is the first generation technology through the fourth technology. They've only allowed 2 frequencies, averaging about that. But with 5G, they basically, FCC said, we've opened up the entire spectrum for you guys to use, including the millimeter waves. So it's kind of like going to, the previous generation is like going to a candy store and allowing you to pick 2 bars, 2 candy pieces. And that's what they did with the first 4 generation. 5th generation, they basically said, you can have the whole damn store. So we will be pummeled with every single frequency that is completely unnatural, that does not belong on this earth. So this also includes the millimeter waves. Millimeter waves, if people understand, they know what it does, because it is being used as directed energy weapons, specifically by the government. It's called crowd control, and they zap the people feel pain, instant pain, and they jump out of the way. It's also used for medicine. Millimeter waves, they know it increases cellular mitosis, cellular division, and it's instant. Okay, this is how biologically active millimeter waves are, and millimeter waves are within the microwave spectrum. Okay, so then they're wanting to put these millimeter waves out into the environment without any controlled parameters within, whether it's military or medicine, which is what it's being currently used as well as the TSA airport scanners. But these are all very controlled apparatuses, in controlled environments. And if you look at the science that's backing up millimeter waves, how it's being used, they will say, we cannot veer from the frequency type and the timing, the amount of time that the frequency is being beamed at on these humans. So here, the FCC is allowing the millimeter waves to be, let's just throw this all everywhere, put these on light posts, utility posts, everywhere where people are living in close proximity. So this is the final, crux. This is basically boiling point. 2G is simmer, 3G is medium, 4G is hot, but 5G is boiling. We're going to boil a frog. This is it. As Tom Wheeler says, this is the final frontier. And when you hear someone as satanic as, those guys saying something like this, it means this is the end. I'm not trying to build fear into you guys, but I'm trying to build awareness that this is coming. So strengthen yourselves, strengthen your inner selves, strengthen each other, and basically grab your neighbors, your family and your friends, and say, hey, we need to bond together, and we need to find a way to resolve this. And the InPower movement is that vessel, is that answer, will be that solution. So, gosh, did I answer the question?
Great job. Thank you. Okay. Wow. Adrian.
I just want to say thank you to everyone that's supported us through the tickets in the Zoom room, and those that have been supporting us on the Facebook live stream. There's so many messages and emails to go through. We won't have time to read them all, but we try to go through as many as possible. Thank you for all of your support.
Oh my goodness, Sienna, weren't we lucky today? Thank you so much to Lena and to Max and to Cal. My heart to your heart, my soul to your soul, my love to your love. So I really deeply, deeply appreciate what you're doing. It is so beautiful. It's inspiring. So get inspired and get in touch with them. Okay, sorry, Sienna.
Yeah, so this has been our first 5G call to action. Just the reality of it is just unbelievable. But we have to believe it, and we need to rise together and come together and find the strength and the inner fortitude and the love in our hearts to take action. Because nothing is going to change. They will have their way with us unless we take action. We are the divine intervention. There is nothing left. We've been gifted with the divinity within us. It is our time to childhood end. It is our time. If you need help, if you need support, I know Max is there. I know InPower is there. Rise is there. Living Lessons Library is there. Please, I know it sometimes feels like pulling yourself out of quicksand, but please reach out, and we will do all in our power to support you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us and your expertise and your passion and your knowledge. Wow. Okay. I think we're done.